Red Bull thought this would be a statement of dominance. Instead, it triggered alarm. The RB22 presentation was meant to mark the beginning of a new era. But by the time the cameras stopped rolling, questions were spreading faster than headlines. Verstappen didn't smile. The engine wasn't shown. And what was said after the event wasn't just off script. It was a warning. Because behind the lights and the music, what was supposed to be a celebration of power turned into a public display of doubt. And if what's now leaking from Milton Keynes is even half true, then Red Bull's biggest gamble may already be unraveling before the car even touches the track. But what's coming next might be even more dangerous than anyone expected. Detroit wasn't just a launch. It was a message. Red Bull chose the city deliberately, Ford's home turf, industrial, iconic, and deeply symbolic. They were announcing a new era. Not just a new car, but a new identity. A car powered by an engine they built themselves. And for the first 20 minutes, it worked. The music hit. The lights flared. The RB22 rolled onto the stage under banners of power, independence, and dominance. And standing beside it, Max Verstappen. Calm, composed, undefeated in presence. But something felt off. Verstappen didn't play the part. He didn't sell the car. He didn't repeat the bullet points written by marketing. When asked about the project, he gave short answers, calculated, careful. And then came the sentence no one was prepared for. "We'll probably spend more time in the garage than on track during testing." That landed like a slap across the launch. You could feel the room shift. Smiles turned tight. The energy dipped. And the press, sensing blood, leaned forward. Because Verstappen doesn't say things by accident. Especially not at a live-streamed global event. He wasn't venting. He was sending a message. To Red Bull. To Ford. And to anyone still under the illusion that the RB22 was problem-free. What followed was even more telling. No rebuttal from Horner. No clarification from the team's press office. No softening of the message from anyone on stage. Just silence. The kind of silence you only get when everyone knows the driver just said something true. That wasn't supposed to be said. Verstappen's comment wasn't just emotional. It wasn't frustration. It was backed by data. Because in the days leading up to the launch, Red Bull ran a final round of high-load dyno simulations. Full deployment cycles. Full energy recovery. Simulated race stints under 2026 power unit regulations. And that's when the problem started. Internally, they're calling it a stability issue. But it's more than that. Under peak thermal load, the engine doesn't behave consistently. Battery output drops off faster than projected. Recovery lag from the MGUK begins to interfere with throttle response. And torque delivery becomes irregular in high-temperature phases. Which means, the car may look stable from the outside, but inside the system, it's unpredictable. That's a problem Verstappen doesn't tolerate. He drives with precision. He wants the car to respond the same way. Every time he brakes late, rotates the chassis, opens throttle on exit. If the power unit surges? If torque delivery delays by half a second? If the battery doesn't recharge in time for the next DRS zone? It doesn't just slow the car. It breaks his rhythm. And rhythm is how he dominates. Now Red Bull knows this. They've seen it in the sim. They've seen it in the hardware-in-loop tests. And it's no coincidence that the team pulled key engineers out of Detroit before the post-launch media run. They weren't avoiding questions. They were heading back to Milton Keynes. Because whatever the engine showed them in the last test block was worse than expected. This isn't just about fixing a map. This is about control. Because right now, the power unit isn't doing exactly what it's told. And in Formula One, that's the first sign of a season slipping away. Up until now, Red Bulls had one clear advantage over the rest of the grid. Control. They don't answer to Honda anymore. They don't rely on Renault. They built Red Bull powertrains for one reason. To own every part of the process. And for the last 18 months, that's exactly what they did. Until now. Because Ford, the manufacturer whose name sits on that engine, and whose logo was front and center at the RB22 launch, has just started asking the kind of questions that Red Bull doesn't want to answer. Why are battery temps rising faster than predicted? Why is the MGUK failing to maintain energy loops beyond lap 12? Why is deployment being cut manually in the final sector of simulation runs? And most of all, why wasn't this caught earlier? From Ford's side, it's a simple calculation. They've committed millions. They've attached their brand to this launch. They've told investors, globally, that this is Ford's return to Formula One success. What they did not agree to was being associated with a power unit that might not last a race distance. That's where the tension is building. Because Ford didn't just want a sticker on the car. They want credit. They want visibility. And now, in this moment of doubt, they want answers. But Red Bull isn't giving them. Because inside Milton Keynes, this isn't viewed as a shared problem. It's viewed as a leak. Of control, of process, of structure. Ford pushing for transparency. Feels like interference. And in a team built on autonomy, that's the fastest way to create fractures. Now, everything's political. Every failed dyno run. Every missed benchmark. Every Verstappen quote. They don't just trigger meetings, they trigger territory battles. Because the moment Ford gets more say in how this engine evolves, Red Bull loses the one thing they built this entire program around. Independence. And that's the real fear now. Not that the engine fails, but that the partnership collapses. Before the car even reaches full power. Here's what no one is saying in the interviews. Not Horner. Not Ford. Not even Verstappen. This partnership was built on assumptions, not alignment. From the outside, Red Bull and Ford looked like a perfect match. One team dominating Formula One. One manufacturer looking to return on a global stage. Both pushing the message. We build fast. We build future. But inside the project? It's never been that simple. Red Bull operates like a race team. Lean. Private. Fast-moving. They test, they react, they adjust. Sometimes by the hour. Ford doesn't. Ford is corporate. Structured. Layered. Every subsystem reviewed. Every decision backed by multiple departments. It's not worse, just slower. And in Formula One, slow is dangerous. So when Red Bull promised performance, Ford expected process. Checks. Reporting. Validation. Instead, they got results. And silence. And now that something's wrong, that silence is backfiring. Because Ford isn't just frustrated with the numbers. They're confused by the lack of clarity. No clear timeline for fixes. No shared dyno logs in real time. No protocol for integrating their engineers deeper into the core. It's not just that the engine might fail. It's that Ford doesn't know why. And Red Bull isn't telling them. That's the breakdown no one's explaining publicly. Not the performance drop, but the communications failure that's making it worse. And inside that failure is something far more dangerous. Because if this continues into the season, if the reliability doesn't improve, if Verstappen continues to lose confidence, this doesn't stay technical. It becomes philosophical. One side built to take risks, the other built to avoid them. And in that kind of partnership, only one side survives when pressure hits. Let's start with Verstappen. He's been here before. In cars that were too slow, too fragile, too chaotic. But that was years ago. That was before dominance. Before titles. Before this team was built around him. Now, he's not here to wait. That's why his words at the launch carried so much weight. They weren't emotional. They were strategic. Because Verstappen isn't just the lead driver. He's the signal. And what he said about the RB22 spending more time in the garage than on track wasn't just frustration. It was a warning. To the team. To the engineers. To the boardroom. And to Ford. Because if Verstappen feels the car won't be competitive, he'll start applying pressure. Not quietly. Not internally. He'll do it the way he always does. On camera. Direct. Undeniable. That puts Red Bull in a bind. They can't push back against him. They built their empire around his results. And if he starts losing faith in the engine, it sends a message no technical briefing can undo. But it doesn't stop with Max. This entire project was Red Bull's gamble. To build their own engine. To own everything. To go all in on independence, just as the new regulations hit. If it fails, it's not just a power unit failure. It's a structural embarrassment. Because now, every other team is watching. Ferrari, Mercedes, Audi, all of them waiting to see if Red Bull's control model holds up, under real-world pressure. Because if it doesn't, it resets the perception of what's possible. Under the 2026 rule set, it tells new manufacturers, don't build your own, don't go alone, stick with what's proven, stay safe. And for the FIA, that's the last thing they want. Because Ford wasn't just any partner. They were the symbol, the big return, the validation that F1's hybrid future could attract new global names. If this goes wrong, if the RB22 limps through the first races, or breaks down under pressure, the narrative flips. Red Bull looks overconfident. Ford looks exposed. And the FIA's vision for a balanced, open-engine formula starts to unravel. So now, the question isn't technical anymore. It's structural. Does Red Bull double down and keep control? Or do they open the door to Ford and risk losing the one thing they've spent 3 years building? Because that's the choice. The engine can be fixed, eventually. The thermal issues, the hybrid behavior, the inconsistencies, they'll find answers. But the politics? That doesn't go away. Not when a global manufacturer starts demanding access. Not when the most successful driver on the grid is already questioning the season before it starts. Not when the paddock knows that this was never just about horsepower. It was about power, full stop. And right now, Red Bull is under pressure from every direction. From Verstappen, from Ford, from the FIA, quietly watching from the sidelines, and from a grid full of rivals who've been waiting 3 years for a weakness to finally show. So what happens in Bahrain? Do they show up with a solution? Do they run full power from FP1? Do they silence the doubt? Or does Verstappen's statement, the one that ended the RB22 launch, with a chill instead of applause, turn out to be the moment the season slipped away? Because if the car breaks down, if the system collapses, if the pressure from Ford overtakes the independence of Red Bull powertrains, then this story doesn't end with a fix. It begins with a fracture. And that fracture, quiet, deep, already forming beneath the surface, could reshape everything we thought we knew about who controls the future of Formula One.